one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream. My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. That one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill and mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together.
So let's continue with a few more clips from Dr. King, and then we'll hear from Vern. Before we even get started, can we just say thanks to Vern for being willing to share today? And y'all do that for me? Yeah. It's fun hanging out with this guy. I get a privilege, probably more than some of you, to spend more time with him. And it's fun because we almost don't agree all the time. Well, yeah, we agree on some things and we don't agree on some things, but I love just the challenge of the conversation, right? I love when someone's willing to sit down and just say, here's where I am. And that's what you get with Vern. That's what he'll bring to us today. And I know he's always open to any time the conversation you might want to have with him regarding his life experiences and the things that he's been through and the things he'll share with today. So is that fair, Vern, to put that on you? You know I love you. So let's keep going.
So I would say to those of you who are warring and struggling against your oppressor, to use Christian methods and Christian weapons, and let him know that as you struggle, you're not attempting to defeat him, not attempting to humiliate him, not attempting to get rid of him or to pay him back. But let him know that you are seeking to help him as well as yourself. Let him know that the festering sword of segregation debilitates the white man as well as the Negro. Let him know that as you seek to rid the earth of this evil of segregation, you are seeking to help him also. Give that message all over the world and live by that principle and get rid of that something called segregation, America. For it is not only rationally inexplicable, but it is morally scandalous. You must get rid of it if you are to be a Christian nation. Yes, America, I realize that some of you will give your lives to this something. There will be white people of goodwill who will do it, and there will be Negroes who will struggle to get rid of it. But I want to say this to you, that as you struggle, don't despair. Realize that whenever you stand up for right and righteousness, whenever you stand up for truth, whenever you stand up for goodness, you will be persecuted, but don't despair about it. Sometimes it might mean going to jail, but if that is the case, be willing to fill up the jail, because I had to go to jail. It might even mean physical death. But if physical death is the price that some must pay to free their children from a life of permanent psychological death, then nothing could be more honorable. Don't worry about the persecutions, America. You are going to have that if you stand up for truth and goodness. Oh, that happened throughout my life. As soon as I was converted, I was denied by the disciples at Jerusalem. Then I was later tried for heresy at Jerusalem. Yes, I was beaten at Thessalonica. I was mobbed at Ephesus. I was jailed at Philippi, and I went down to Athens, and I was depressed there. Yes, I was even shipwrecked in Malta. But I'm still going, and I still believe that the gospel of Jesus Christ is the only hope of the world. I still believe that in standing up for the gospel of Jesus, nothing in the world is greater. This is the end of life. This is the end of the universe. The end of the universe is not to be happy. The end is not to avoid suffering, but the end of life is to do the will of God, come what may. Oh, America, will you hear that and will you follow that before it is too late? Then I must say one other thing. You know, I said to the church at Corinth that love is the principal thing, and I want to still say that to America. In America, I want you to know that you might move high in the world. You might come to the point that you are mighty eloquent in your speech. You might master the English language. All of your grammar might be perfect. You might move high. You might move with all of the eloquence of an articulate speech. But I want you to realize, America, that it is still true that even if you can speak with the tongues of men and angels and have not love, you are become as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. Yes, America, you may have the gift of prophecy so that you can understand all mysteries. You may have scientific insights so that you can break out into the storehouse of nature. Yes, America, you might have all of the mysteries and understand them so that you can remove the mountains of material obstacles. You may move all of the mountains that stand before you, but unless you have love, it means nothing. But even more, America, you may give your goods to feed the poor. You might tower high in philanthropy. You may give great gifts to the United Appeals. You may give great gifts to your colleges and universities. You may give big money. But if you have not love, it means nothing, yes, and you may even give your body to be burned. You may even stand up and die life as a martyr. You may stand before the universe as that honorable person who was willing to stand up as a martyr. But even if you do that and you have love, it means nothing. Yes, America, it is possible to be self-dissonant in one's denial and self-righteous in some self-sacrifice. It is possible for one to be generous in order to feed his ego, and it is possible for one to be pious in order to feed his pride. And so man has the tragic capacity of being able to relegate a heightening vice to a heightening virtue to a tragic vice. Yes, even if you give your goods to feed the poor and have not love, it means nothing. You may build all of your great institutions. You may have all knowledge. You may build your great Harvard and your great Yale. You may have all of your institutions of learning and all of your PhDs and MAs and ABs. But if you have not love, America, it means nothing. I still want you to know that love is the principal thing in the universe. I want you to know that at the center of life stands love, and that it is the most durable power in the world. And if you follow that, America, you will build a great...
Yes, Dr. King, how do we love in the face of hatred? That was not in my notes. I just thought I would respond to him because it's pretty amazing. I really appreciate a chance to share this morning about this holiday that is so important for this nation. It's been going on quite a few years, particularly to Black Americans, because I think we know this, that Dr. King was the first black human being that was ever honored in this way. That never happened in our history before. And so now we celebrate this holiday for years and years. And I'm not going to talk about the what that we do every time this year to adulate Dr. King and how amazing was, what amazing Christian he was, just amazing man, the incredible influence he had in our country. I think he would probably feel uncomfortable with that. And I'm not going to talk about the history of the civil rights. I think many of you are pretty aware of that. And obviously it's a storied part of our history, and sadly it's still going on. Anyone that thinks that the civil rights movement is over really isn't paying a whole lot of attention, because in our nation today, we're dealing with these issues on deep levels, and I'll tell you, to agree that will continue, I don't know, but I'm not going to focus on that, the historical part. I want to make this personal. I want to make this about you and me. And even though racism is systemic, and that's where most of the oppression comes from, systems are devised by individuals for good or ill. So I ask you to join me today in a personal self-examination. Looking at our hearts together and lifting our minds and thoughts before our Creator God, who would never countenance discrimination between any people groups, because He created all of us. And I'm going to recount my own personal journey and ask you to do the same, either now while I'm sharing, or at home today, or sometime soon. I'm asking us to examine our hearts together. I think if we don't do that, if it's not personal, then it isn't real for us. I'm calling no one a racist, but I know the human heart well enough to know that those thoughts lurk in all of us, and the history of this country has manifested that in too many ways to count, as we know. And as I say, it's still there. And I know this from my own history. No white person was ever told he or she could not drink from a particular fountain, nor go to a library, or wait in a separate doctor's waiting room while all the white people were seen first. Not be able to go and sit down in a restaurant if you want a cup of coffee, or go to separate bathrooms, or for a significant time in our history not be able to vote. That's how real it was. I grew up in a racist environment, but no one would call it that. It was just the way it was. We always had what you could call colored maids, and they were treated with respect on the outside, but you all knew as a child that they were considered inferior to you. When I was a young teen, one young black woman, just out of her teens herself, shocked me by telling me that she hated my grandmother because she treated her poorly and paid her really low wages. There were other instances too. The adults clicking their tongues when our black handyman married a white woman. I remember that. But the incident that turned me away from my family heritage and made me realize that racism was real and caused me to join the fight against discrimination the rest of my life happened when I was 16. My dad owned a thoroughbred horse ranch, which constituted my teenage chores. On it, all the workers but one were black. One of them was a young man who I really grew to admire. He was big and strong and told great stories and was truly respected by everyone. They called him Buck because back then it was common for white people to call black people by nicknames instead of their real names. Anyway, Buck and I hung around a lot together, and he became almost like an older brother to me, and definitely a kind of hero. Then one day we took some horses to Arlington Racetrack in Chicago for a sale, and my brother and I got to go up along to help with Buck and a couple other black workers. We got there, we bedded down the straw in the stalls, and my dad left and took my younger brother with him to eat at the track kitchen. And he told Buck to bring me after we had finished with our chores, and so we did that. And so after we finished our chores, we headed to eat. We were just walking along and talking like we always did, and suddenly we came to this whitewashed building, and all of a sudden, in mid-sentence, Buck stopped talking and walked through a screen door and just left me standing there. I looked up and saw what I had never seen before, 2 signs, colored and white. Stunned, I stood there for a second and then went through the screen door on the right. The room had a dividing wall until the end, where the wall ended before a lunch counter with stools. My father and brother and a few other white men were sitting on those stools before me. When I got there and looked to my left, Buck and the other black men were on the other side. Buck did not make any eye contact. And I remember being really upset and not eating much, and having the sense or fear not to ask my dad what was going on until later. When I did ask him, he just said, "That's the way it is." And that's the way it was. And though that kind of segregation is thankfully almost gone, it changed my world, and I've never been able to be content with just being the way it is. I don't want to be part of that racist world. So that incident changed me. Maybe you had a similar understanding. Maybe things like that did not bother you or your family. Maybe they upset you a lot and you were even more radical in your response. And that's your personal business. But I have hope for the future. What kind of response will our children and grandchildren make to this condition, seeing the young people in here? When my son Seth's first son was a year old, Seth and his wife visited the Martin Luther King Memorial in D.C., and Seth sent me a photo of him holding up his son Ellis in front of an inscription at the memorial. The following poem ensued, and I challenge all of us to raise our young people to love everyone God put on this earth with us. So I don't know if you could put that poem on the overhead. It's a little joke. I asked him to put it on the overhead. I identified my age because I think that was an overhead. So is it up there? Okay. I still have a dream. It comes as a stark reminder in a text snapshot. My infant grandson sprawled smiling on the stone block in D.C. I have a dream. The great king's legacy. When I was born, there was no articulated dream. Only the dream in the hearts of those who could not speak it. The arrogant looks, beatings, shootings, lynchings. My parents, unawares, could not dream. Now my son, the father of my grandboy, can dream. He placed his Wrigley son on that sun-drenched stone today. Yes, Dr. King, my grandson may well walk hand in hand with your great-granddaughter. Not for everyone yet, but I still have a dream. So back to my challenge today to honor the sacrifice of Dr. King and so many African Americans who gave their lives and suffered a lot of hardship, like some whites also, during those tumultuous times and even up through today. Talk about Black Lives Matter, and all the kind of things that are going on. I don't know if people know this, but this is a simple fact. The mean income for African Americans in this country is $30,000 less than for white people. That's a lot. And that makes the separation in the society so deep, because there has been absolutely changes, and we had an African American president, which I had never, absolutely, ever in my life thought would happen. But at the same time, for African American and white and Latino people and Indian people, there's a huge gap, a huge income gap that manifests itself in ways that are actually growing worse right now. So this is a bigger thing than just the racial thing. So what I'm going to ask you in your own time frame, either later today, honor the holiday tomorrow, there's a prayer breakfast at the Vineyard that you can go to tomorrow if you want to. Tonight there's a service at the Cranert that I've been part of in the past. Anytime, just spend some time thinking and praying about what you can do, how you can put your own heart before God and ask Him specific ways. You can pass attitudes on to your children, react in certain ways to things that happen, vote in particular ways, back certain laws depending on, what you feel about them, to make things, ameliorate things, not only the racial level, but in the kind of social level across the board. So that you can personally combat the racism that is so deeply still in our country and community in our own hearts. For I confess it still lingers there, even in mine, after all these years. So now please join me in prayer. Father God, thank you that I got the opportunity to share my story with my brothers and sisters in the faith. As we examine our lives, help us to see ways we can stand up to the racism in and around us and love all our neighbors as ourselves. Amen. And now there's going to be one more video clip, and this is King's incredible mountaintop speech in which I think the Lord told him. One thing is true, and anyone thinks that what are the motivations of this man was, it was the Lord. He had a connection with the Lord. I believe he was led into doing what he was doing. And I think the Lord also told him that he was about to die. I really think he knew that. And that just shows his courage even more. So please listen to that. Thank you.
All we say to America is be true to what you said on paper. If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country, maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right. And so just as I say we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. Well, I don't know what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
This is a record. Honestly, I asked Vern to speak for 7 to 10 minutes, which usually means 20, and he actually went 7. So I would say take this time that we're going to have that you don't normally have here at church and continue to get to hang out with one another and connect with one another, possibly pick Vern's brain a little bit. And I do appreciate the challenge for personal reflection, right? And that's really what this weekend needs to be about for us. Most of us, well, looking around the room, most of us just don't know. And this is just a great opportunity to stop and reflect and just ask, what's in my heart, God? Where's some darkness? Just following the same pattern we've been following through Advent this year and into the new year. Is there a darkness in me in this area that just needs light? And what would that look like? And what does that mean? And then respond. Right? That's all we can ask. And respond in a way that makes other people's lives better because of the way we love and the way we care and the way that we do everything we can to be Jesus with skin on in this world, to incarnate Jesus moment by moment, day by day, in the way we love. So I appreciate the challenge, appreciate your story and being on and just vulnerability about that. And I know, how many times someone has said to me, well, that's just how I was raised. And that is not a good enough answer, right? That's just not. It never will be. And we have to get above that. So, and it is crazy hard, right? Even as Vern is saying as he finished up today, deep in there, there's parts of struggle of who am I and how am I treating other humans. So work at this. It is worth it. That's it. I have nothing else for us, and we're going to bless you with time. Do what? Oh, yeah. So tonight, 5 o'clock at the Cranert Center for the celebration. Been a part of that. Been a part of the committee that runs that for several years. I'm not now, but you'll be inspired. You'll be challenged if you have time to attend that. And then tomorrow morning, also at the Vineyard at 30 breakfasts, and there scholarships given away, and some of the scholarship recipients will share their story and what that's meant in their life. And so inspirational, encouraging, good time to be a part of things going on in our community and to participate. And I know you'll be blessed. So that's it for us, church. We leave this place, or we're going to hang out for a while because we got extra time. But we do what we do because we know, and you know this deep down, that whoever finds God finds life. God bless you. Have a great day.